welcome to Try Not to Overthink It. I'm RJ.
I'm unique.
And I'm Khalil.
Every day, just like you, we find ourselves trying to make sense of this crazy thing that we call life. As peers in the healthcare profession, we find ourselves discussing and debating many different topics. After many heated debates, we decided to both expand upon these topics and give our viewpoints on them as licensed therapists and social workers. If this is your first time here, we'd like to thank you for checking us out, and we hope that you'll stay and become part of the tribe and participate in the conversations. So today we are going to talk about getting closer to your partner. For those of us who've been with the same person for a while, it can feel as though you and your partner have been together for what seems like an eternity or even longer than that. And sometimes this can be good, and other times it can be bad. As either of you may begin to feel that you start to drift apart or that you become distant. This is actually normal. And could be happening for a multitude of different reasons, ranging from possible work stressors, a new addition to the family, financial issues, or even spending too much time together. Okay. If you started to notice this type of drift or schism or gap between you and your partner, it's important that you kind of talk about those things and try to work through those things and figure out what can bring back that spark or that closeness that you felt when you guys initially started. I think that for us as human beings, for me, I am a person that when I'm in a relationship with somebody, I study them like I study for a test. That's how serious I'm looking at it. Because me and my sister were talking about this back at Thanksgiving of last year, and it was me, her, and the guy that she was dating at the time, and she was just going on about how it's important for her to be a top performer in a relationship because she doesn't want to let her partner down. And, to me, that resonated with me because I think about that myself. I think about it from the aspect of I want to know everything there is to know about my partner so that I can be the best help that I can be. Because there's going to be things that she's weak in. There's going to be things that I'm weak in. And so when we're putting in the work and we're putting the energy into one another, that is only going to bring out the best in our relationship. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. If you're going to get into a relationship, I think that's what being in a relationship with somebody requires you to figure out or get to know them for who they are, their likes, their dislikes, their idiosyncrasies, their quirks, all of what makes them, I think is important to figure out in order to be in right relationship with someone. Because if not, then that person is nothing but a mere acquaintance, right? At that point, if we're just, we're doing the surface level stuff, you do surface level stuff with people you're acquainted with, not somebody that I am desiring to be in an intimate relationship with, whether it's an intimate friendship or otherwise. But we're talking about romantically. So yeah, romantically, I need to do what's going to help me to go the distance with this person.
Yeah, definitely that mental / emotional, physical connection has to be established. But if it isn't established appropriately in the beginning of the relationship, you'll see a lot of things falter. If I don't know your likes and dislikes, if I don't know certain quirks that you have or idiosyncrasies, as Unique said, you had to use that big word on us.
Drop it in there.
Look, and the funniest thing about that is I've been with my partner for 4 years. And during that time, I had to learn certain things about her that I might not have taken time in the past. In the past times when I met someone, I wasn't concerned with what colors they thought looked good on them, or I wasn't concerned with what type of music that they really liked to listen to. I wasn't concerned about, how certain family members might make them feel, or if they're uncomfortable in certain social situations. Those things didn't ring a bell to me because I was thinking, hey, I might just be dating this person for this week. I'm a serial dater. And it's one of those things where, man, I speed dated for most of my 20s until I met my ex-wife, and I slowed down a little bit, and she had a hard time slowing me down. But the thing was, I wasn't interested because I was very selfish, And there's a lot of people out there like that go into a relationship, in a long-term relationship, and still carrying some of those single tendencies. Not all single people like that, but I'm just saying they carry those tendencies to be so self-consumed that they're not aware of certain things that they should be in a serious relationship. I should know my partner doesn't like the TV loud at night. They can't fall asleep with the TV on. Some people can, right? I should know that my partner likes at a certain temperature to be able to rest appropriately. I should know, my partner doesn't like to stay up late during work nights. And that's a hindrance to their performance at work. I should know certain things about my partner in order for us to have a relationship that's built on mutual respect and love. And when I don't know those things, it's scary when I meet couples who come in for counseling and family counseling, and I'm like, you don't know these things about your partner? How does that happen? Right? It scares you.
I think one of the things that you touched on was like just getting to know all of the nuances that make your partner or your person who they are. And I think it's just important to know even deeper how they interpret love. Like, what does love look like to them? We talked about Gary Chapman and the 5 love languages on our channel before, on our podcast before. But I think people don't actually take the time to say, okay, this feels like love to my person, right? If your significant other does not like flowers and you bring them flowers and present them as a gift, here, I bought you flowers, and they're like, okay, now what?
Right.
It's kind of like, what do you want me to do with these? That's how I felt. I've expressed to people who I've dated and even my husband, teddy bears. I am not one of those girls who likes teddy bears. I think they're cute, but if you buy it, what do you want me to do with this? Like,
Mount it in your room on the bed. That's what you do when you're a teenager or something like that.
It doesn't really go with my room aesthetic. I don't know what you want me to do with it, but the person giving it gave it out of love and care, right? And so they're expecting that I will feel that same way, but I don't.
Right.
But now if you say, okay, I'm giving you some art supplies, or I'm giving you, something else that they've seen me use often, right? Then I feel more love in that because you took time out to notice this is something that I use or something that I do. And so therefore now I feel valued, I feel appreciated, and I feel seen. And I think that's something that a lot of times people struggle with, is seeing other people through through the person's own eyes and not through their own eyes, like the giver's eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that for a lot of us, like what you guys are both saying, putting other people ahead of yourself. I feel like when you put the other person, because what should be happening when you're in a relationship with someone, or you're courting someone, or you're talking to someone, they should be feeding into you, you should be feeding into them. Far too often we get caught up in making sure that I eat without really making sure that everyone else eats. And so your relationship is only going to last or work as well as you're both putting into it. And, like my dad, he says stuff all the time, like when he's, on one about trying to scold us about something. And so he always talks about Jesus first, others second, yourself last. And, he was like, as long as you're operating in that mindset, things will always work out well for you. When you put yourself first, or even yourself second, you're always going to come up short.
Yeah.
And I've kind of noticed, like, even with like our phones. So like if you have an iPhone, it always sends you that alert at the end of the week to notify you of your screen time. You spent X amount of hours on your screen, looking at your screen or doing something on your screen in comparison to where you were last week. If we put, because like my phone, you spent 9 hours per day looking at your phone. Just imagine what you could do in that 9 hours if you put that into your mate. Just imagine what you'd be able to achieve. Where your relationship would go to the next level if you put that much time that you put into your phone into your mate. What's going on with them? Because you guys should have a closeness ideally and theoretically and hypothetically, what should happen is you guys should have a closeness where you guys know what each other is thinking without the other person even saying anything. You'll know when your mate isn't feeling their best, or they're not up to something, or they don't want to do something, and you don't even have to. They don't have to tell you. You just look at them and you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even when you look at just friendships, you know, Unique and I have been friends for a long time. I can tell when something's wrong with Unique.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she don't even got to tell me there's something wrong. I just know the energy is different. The vibe is different. And so when you have that closeness in a relationship, when you are developing, especially when you first get together, that is the time for you guys that is what the dating phase is for. The dating phase is for you guys to know those things about each other. Like Khalil said, what colors don't look good on me? Mm-hmm. Which family members I don't really rock with too heavily? Certain things that upset me, certain things that are going to trigger me. That's the time to find those things out. But I feel like what happens is, and I always go back to this, it always seems I always go back to the same thought process every episode, doing things out of sequential order. You know, we just jump into, I think you're cute, I'm cute, we look good together. And now we're in a relationship. And then once that initial fire or the honeymoon phase wears off, what do we have left? Mm-hmm. What is that spark that's going to keep us together? Or are we just going to be roommates at that point? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or associates at that point? Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that, for like when you look at the statistics, why a lot of marriages don't last. Because I was even talking with somebody at work about this, and that was something that she wants to do. You know, after she finally retires from her job, is she wants to have some sort of thing where, you know, couples can work on rekindling their romance and keeping their romance alive. Mm-hmm. You know, and I never really thought about that, but you know, you have to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because like, you know, I just left church, and one of the things they talk about in church, and the Bible says, faith without works is death. You know, love without work is going to be the death of your relationship. And so every single day, I got to learn something new about my partner. Mm-hmm. You know, because if you're observant, I learn things every single day. You know, like my niece, I learned something new about her every single day just from watching her, being around her. You know, and you put forth that energy and that consistent effort into your mate. Mm-hmm. You won't, there won't be things that can come in between you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's no different than like my parents. I was a kid that stayed getting into stuff. My parents knew me so well. Somebody came and said that I did something. My kid don't do that. Mm-hmm. Now, if you said they did this, and this, yeah, my kid did that. But this, I know my kid ain't that type of kid. That ain't my kid.
Yep.
And you should have that closeness with your partner to where if somebody came to you and said, oh, I saw Khalil over here with this person, that person, you know, his wife, nah, that ain't Khalil. Mm-hmm. I know my man. That ain't Khalil. Mm-hmm. And that's the type of relationship that you want to have, the closeness that you want to have.
I think it's like I talked to my husband about it, and I said one of the goals for our marriage is to be able to develop a language that he and I speak, where it's like what you're talking about, Raja, where you're able to say certain things or provide a look or provide a gesture, and your spouse automatically knows what's going on. They know what's up. My daughter and I, oddly enough, she's like, Mommy, I can finish her sentences. I can, in her voice, she's like, how do you do that? I said, it's a gift. I know you. She was just like, I know, but I said, and you're thinking again, but how do you do it? She's like, there you go again. You're thinking my thoughts. It's like, you're in my head. I said, I'm not in your head, but I'm into you.
Right.
I'm into you. I'm into the people that you're into. I'm into the crafts that you're into. And I told my husband that's something that we have to be intentional about doing. We have to be that intentional about building that language between the two of us that only we speak. And so when I'm in a space, I'll know, okay, my spouse would like this, or they would operate well here. I know certain relationships that, okay, this is what my spouse would like, and certain danger zones, right? Mm-hmm. Let's be real. This is what my spouse is attracted to.
Yeah.
And I gotta, not saying we police or we can control any of that. No, because I think it's a respect factor there, but we have eyes, and your eyes don't turn off because you get married. Your feelings and your chemistry doesn't turn off or alter because you get married. It's just the respect factor why you don't do things.
You don't put him in a situation for him to be tempted.
Right. So I'm not going to put my husband in a situation to be tempted, and neither he would put me in a situation to be tempted. And I think having that communication allows for you guys to be able to speak honestly about things, and share how you really feel. I was watching the new Fresh Prince show. I think it's called Bel Air. And in the show, the husband and wife have this moment where the wife is, I think they're laying on the floor, and she says radical honesty to her husband. And when she says the statement radical honesty, she's able to say anything that she wants to him without him taking offense or becoming defensive about it. And so she tells him how she feels about his lack of support for her artwork. And she's just like, I don't feel like you really supported me. I feel like I supported you in your campaign and I did all of this stuff. But when I needed you to rock for me, you weren't there. And you didn't push me to continue doing something that you knew I loved. And it gave him a chance to really give it to her from his perspective and say, no, it wasn't that I didn't support you. I realized that you didn't have the capacity to do that. And so I didn't want to be the one pushing you to do something and adding something else to your plate. And I was like, in that moment, no, that wasn't what the whole show was about, but I thought it was a beautiful moment and a real moment between couples, because sometimes you need that space to just be radically honest about how you feel like I didn't get what I needed from you. And then, not saying this makes you the worst person, but I needed more and you didn't give it to me.
But right. See, even in that, just imagine how many misunderstandings that rippled from that initial thing.
Yes.
Had she told him that from the very beginning, he would have told her what he said, from the very beginning. And, there wouldn't have been that underlying tone of possible resentment, because I feel like you didn't support me, but I supported you. And I feel like even small things, like you said, just the support. Yep. I remember I was dating a young lady one time, and she used to like to watch this show called Jerseylicious. And
I'm sorry. I remember the show. I remember the show.
We watched that show every week together. And even when we weren't together, she would call me on the phone, and we would sit on the phone and we're watching the show at the same time. And so good. because that show was that important to her, to the point to where I learned how to do makeup from watching the show.
Oh, wow.
I can do a smoky eye. I can do the cat eye.
Wow.
I learned how to, blend, all of that stuff, contour, all of that from watching the show, because it was just that important to her. Same thing with watching the Wendy Williams show. Like, I hated that show. Like, I wanted to ram my head through a wall every time that show came on. But that show was important to her. So because it was important to her, it was important to me. And I used to joke on my dad, me and my younger brother joke on my dad all the time, because my stepmom, whenever she's not at work and he's not at work, she literally calls him roughly every 15 to 20 minutes. She'll forget something and then call him back. And then first thing she says is, "What are you doing?" And you could see it in his face. Like, he wants to say, "I'm doing the same thing I was when you called me 20 minutes ago." But he doesn't do that. And so, me and my brother were laughing at him about it one day. He was like, "This is what you do when you're married. It's important to my wife to talk to me all the time. So it's important that I answer the phone when she calls me. It's not something I want to do," he said, "but it's something I have to do because it's what makes my wife happy." And so, like, even laughing and joking to him about that, I understood the importance of that assignment. Of this is an assignment that I have to fulfill. Because it's what makes my wife feel important. It's what makes my wife feel special. And I mean, you may not want to do it, but it's something that you have to do because it's important to your partner. And I think that for a lot of us, when, again, put our partner first, and by putting our partner first, and like you said, looking at things from their perspective, the things that make them important. It doesn't have to be something grand, doesn't have to be something over the top or big, but something as simple as watching a television show, answering the phone, meant the world, it means the world to people. I mean, like, looking back on it now, I laugh at it, because I'm like, what was I doing watching that show? But it was important for us to watch that show together. And so we watched that show, and I mean, Like there were a couple times where I'd fall asleep and she, hey, wake up, you're missing the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, because it was important to her, it was important to me. And for me, just watching my parents model that behavior of what a real relationship should look like has really kind of like dialed me in on how I'm supposed to perform in a relationship. Because I mean, most of us, we do what we see.
Yeah,
Right.
We're products of our environment, and because we tend to do what we see, we will, if we see wrong, we'll do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents, I see what right looks like, of the unconditional positive regard, the unconditional support for one another, where my dad's weak in certain areas, my stepmom is strong in those areas. My stepmom is weak in those areas, my dad is strong in those areas. And they feed off of each other, and it's
a partnership.
It is. It's a partnership. They don't make decisions by themselves. And like me and my brother would joke on them like, hey, we know who's really in charge. She in charge, so we need to talk to her. We need to talk to the boss. Get out the way. We need to talk to the boss. But
Well,
like,
look,
no.
that's that misconception that people have. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's the problem. What you explained earlier is the truth about a relationship working as a partnership. What we hear, or I'm going to say what I grew up hearing, is that if I have to continually do certain things to make my partner feel safe or secure, I'm actually being henpecked, or I'm being bullied, or this person that has control over me. And that's the stuff they try to sell men. But the longer I've been in a relationship, I realize that it's imperative that I provide the safety and security, no matter how that looks like, because to everybody's partner, it's different. Just picking up that phone for your stepmother provided her a security. I know I can call my husband and he's going to be there. If he's not, then there's probably something going on. But if that makes her feel secure, all right, that's something that he should do when you love someone.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be as, man, there she go again. No, yeah, I might feel like that, but I know what it does for her. And that's putting your partner first.
I think he recognizes what I pour into. That's what I'm getting out of. Because
Exactly.
we hear, okay, Roger Mel's stepmom is calling, and that's what we see. But we also don't see, right? It's worrisome, and she's nagging.
Yes.
We don't see all of the things that she does for him, right? When she cooks the dinner, or she's mending a shirt, or she's answering 50 times where his wallet is. Like, we don't see that. Right? But that your dad and stepmom understand what I pour in. And more or less, I think just as the head of the household, what you pour in, you get out.
Yes.
Women,
yeah, for sure.
There are a lot of women who are they have cheese grater personalities.
Never heard that one.
Say that with all due respect.
Oh my gosh.
But there are a lot of women that have cheese grater personalities. You gonna get something out of it, but you might cut a knuckle while you're doing it. Okay? It's gonna be some blood drawn in the meantime. But then you have other women who are more like cake baking, right? They have this cake mentality. You put the right ingredients in, you get something delicious out of it. You put the wrong ingredients in, you got something horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all about what you put in it. And they're going to give it to you every time. And it's not like they're trying to be nasty or spicy, and they're consistently that way.
Right.
It's not like they're a cheese grater one day, a cake the next. No, they're consistently, what you give me, I am able to give, right? I have the capacity to serve in that way. I have the capacity to love in that way. Right. And not just you. That's the beautiful thing about women who have cake-like personalities, because the more their spouse pours into them goodness, that covers their kids, their other family members, their co-workers. You're like, dang, this woman get it. Everybody thinks she nice.
Right.
Cause she being, all the right ingredients are being put in at home.
Yeah.
They're being poured in at home.
Exactly.
In the reverse, you meet a woman who is mean and nasty, and she's not a cheese grater, you're like, well, something's off with her. 9 times out of 10, something is wrong in her home life.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like we hear people talk about, pouring from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no love, attention, affection, unconditional positive regard, affirmations being poured into somebody, how can they turn around and then pour that into somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
If they do, it's fake and it's not, coming from the right place. I'm just kind of just saying something just to be saying something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think that it becomes very important to, communicate, not even just the actions, but just the words, have to be said, because you can act all day,
Right.
but if you're not telling somebody I love you, how do they know?
Mm-hmm. I think it's both. I think it's actions and words.
Yeah.
Because how many times have we heard, and this is not a man or woman thing. How many times have we heard people say something and it's just empty?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But how much more impactful is it when a person says it and their actions give that word or that phrase meaning, right? I tell my daughter that all the time. Words are just words until we give them meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And we give them meaning oftentimes by our actions or our response to them. So
Yep.
if I'm saying I love you, right? And she's saying, Mommy, I love you, I love you, I love you. But I've told you to do something, or I've asked you, hey, to pick something up, and I go back and it's still there. Does that feel like love, or does that feel like you over here just trying to butter me up?
Right.
But I'm not. I said, but you are, and we're going to stop this right here and right now because I want to teach that manipulative love. Well,
Yep.
I'm going to do what I think you want. I'm going to say what I think you want to hear so that I can get what I want without having to be responsible to give anything back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How many relationships have we either encountered or witnessed that were like that, right? Where it's that manipulative, quid pro quo relationship where,
Right.
well, I'm going to just do just enough that I can still get everything I want without having to give or lose anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that started somewhere. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it starts when we're little, when we are, the kid who gets everything. And they still cutting up. They still acting out in school. They still mouthy. But their parents buy them everything they want. They let them go anywhere they want to go. Let them do
Right.
anything they want to do. And you wonder why they get in a relationship with somebody else's child, who has a good foundation. And they're like, I don't like this. I don't want to stay here. They ain't right for me. It's not that they're not right for you. You're just used to relationships where you're not required to do anything. You're not required to show that love. You were allowed to just say it.
And when other people put those boundaries up for people who are always used to getting what they want or been enabled with that type of personality from their parents, it's like, wow, I don't like being in this relationship because people are holding me accountable. I have to say what I do. You know what I mean? Say what I mean. And those are the things that get me. I work in the substance abuse field. I see that all the time. I'm like, well, your parents have always given you everything you want. Today, I'm saying no. And now you're upset at me. It's because somebody actually put up an appropriate boundary for you, and you're starting to see what healthy relationships are. I can't let you run all over me like you do dad. I'm not your dad. And when people actually start, that light bulb starts going on, and I start relating this back to maybe this is some of the reasons why you have a problem with your wife or you're having a problem with your husband is you're not used to hearing no. You don't know what boundaries are. And this is for adults. I do it with kids, but when you do it with adults, you start seeing the light bulb come on even faster, right? Because they're like, oh, that's why the person keeps saying no, or that's why they don't want to hang out with me anymore. And it's a scary situation, but that's the world we're in. Everything has to be now. If I don't get it now, that means you don't like me, you don't love me. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think they're just telling you that it's not going to happen now. It might happen later, but it's not going to happen now. And are you going to be able to be good with that? And it's scary for people who don't have that insight. When you're in a relationship, you should always be going above and beyond for your partner. And I didn't get there, overnight. This is something that was a long, long, long history of me learning hey, you know what? I should be trying to do more in the relationship, because the more I pour in, like Unique said, the more I get out of it. And it sounds selfish, but it's not, because I know from my own personal relationship with my wife, hey, when I kiss her, or when I tell her she's beautiful, or where I help clean up, or I get the dishes done before she gets home, or I make the bed up, or I do certain things for her, all right, I'm probably going to get what I want that night. Hate to be like that, but it's
But
something
it's
that I had
true.
to learn.
But see, so what you learned is you ate a lot of cakes, Khalil, that wasn't flavorful.
It
That's
had
what
no
you're trying to
flavor.
tell us.
No, it did not.
You had a lot of cakes that fell down in the middle.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but I needed that.
Or they
I
were
needed
hard
that.
as a rock.
Or they were hard as a rock. Yeah,
Right,
but
right.
yeah, and I needed that, because I was like, oh, this is why she's upset, or this is why she seems a little moody. Man, I didn't give her the type of attention she's looking for today. I haven't done anything, any acts of service for her today. We're going to Gary Chapman. And I started recognizing that she don't want to see, she likes flowers. But that's not, if there's a whole mess of dishes sitting in the kitchen, I can come home with flowers. She ain't going to be happy. Acts of service for most people are going to get you a lot more than just sitting around waiting for your wife to clean up, or sitting around talking reckless to your partner and then expecting her to drop her drawers tonight. It's not going to happen like that the older people get, or people who have some self-worth. You might be able to do that with somebody off the street. You're not going to do that with someone who has some self-worth.
But somebody that you're trying to build something with. Like, it's easy
Right.
to do that type of things with somebody who it's just like, oh, it's a hit it and quit it. Because
Right.
y'all both are getting what you want out of that. But when you're talking about building something with somebody, now I have to live with you. I have to unpack. I have to do life with you.
Right.
And now I just can't I don't have a light switch relationship. I don't want a light switch relationship where one day we're on, next day we're off, next day we're on. I don't want that. I'm trying to get something where you're like, okay, we always on. And then there may be sometimes that we're off.
Right.
Yeah, like as you get older, you start I read that on poster. As I get older, my eyesight gets worse, but my ability to see through the bullshit gets better.
Hey,
And as you get older, you stop settling for things. You start recognizing that this is not what I want, and if it's not something I want, I don't have to remain here any longer.
I have to take it.
Because when you're young, you think you're gonna live forever, and so because you think you're gonna live forever, you'll tolerate being in relationships that are dead ends. You'll tolerate talking to someone who's a waste of your time, and you'll put up with foolishness that you shouldn't be putting up with. And then as you start to get older, you start realizing, hey, I'm trying to have something serious here. I can't keep investing my time and energy into somebody who ain't trying to give me what I need and feed me. So I'm going to, kind of be done with this. And I think that it's very important that we start to kind of discover who we are as a person, because I think that for a lot of people, because they don't know who they are and what's important to them and things that are going to be important for them to grow into who they're supposed to be, it's kind of hard to ask someone to feed into you when you don't even know what you need.
Right.
I think that for a lot of us, like, you'll see people post online about being in a soft season, this and the third. And it's like, you'll be the same person that I'm going into a soft season, but then you've been a calamity and a walking disaster prior to that, but you've been in a relationship with somebody. And when you are talking to someone, you're being courted by someone, or you are doing the courting, everything that is you gets added to that person.
Right.
And so when you look at it from that aspect, what are you adding to that other person? Are you adding drama? Are you adding craziness, chaos, disorganization, foolishness to their life? Then if you're adding those negative things, then you need to stay by yourself. Because what you're going to wind up doing is you're going to wind up making this person jaded because they survived you. Because when you look at things like diamonds are cut into the shape that they're supposed to be.
Right.
Same thing with glass. Your windshield got cut and formed into that shape. Same thing with the windows that are on the side. They got cut and shaped into that. Now, if I walk up and just take a hammer and smash into the glass, now it's broken and jaded. It's no longer the piece that it was supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
It's something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it went from being smooth to I run my hand across and probably going to slice my hand open.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to,
And then you wonder why it doesn't perform the way it used to.
Right.
Because you damaged it.
Exactly. and that's the thing that I feel like a lot of us don't really take into account when we're moving in the reckless way that we move. When we prioritize ourselves more so than the environment around us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can cause change to those around us and the things that happen to be around us. And when you move in a positive way, you start to see positive things happen. When you move in a negative or reckless way, you start to see negative and reckless things happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I always have, the conversation I always have with my clients. Because like when you're sitting down and you're talking to clients, especially clients who are higher functioning and know better, they always want to blame everybody else.
Yep.
It's always things happening to them.
Accountability. Yes.
And so for me, I was explaining to clients like this: fractions. You can add, multiply, divide, and subtract fractions. In order to add and subtract fractions, you have to have the bottom number has to be the common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
Division, you don't have to have that. But addition and subtraction, you have to have a common denominator. So if you move in all these different places and everything always falls to pieces when you touch it, is it everybody else's problem or is it you?
You're the common denominator.
So if you went from this relationship to this relationship to that relationship to that relationship, and all of those different people were from different walks of life, different races, different professions, different educational levels, and the relationships all ended badly, was it them or was it you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For a lot of us, we have to have that insight. We have to understand that a lot of times we are the storm, we're the calamity, we're the chaos. Mm-hmm. And it takes a certain level of maturity. And that's where, like I said, because I've heard people say, to get over somebody, you got to get under somebody or get on top of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
No, you need to take some time to go seek some help to heal. Mm-hmm. Rehabilitate, get yourself together, recenter yourself, and get yourself back in alignment before you get back out on the road. And or as people say, back outside. Before you get back outside, you need to kind of get yourself together, because what you're going to do is you're going to bring your drama and your baggage and your shortcomings and whatever you got going on into the next relationship with somebody else and completely implode that. Right. And it just becomes one of those things where I think that it's very important for you to know you.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, I know me. Mm-hmm. I know that there's certain things that I'm not going for. And in knowing that there's certain things that I'm not going for and certain things that I am on board with, I can communicate that with my partner. And by communicating with my partner, being able to receive as well as transmit. One of the mistakes that most of us make is we want to do a whole bunch of transmitting and not a whole bunch of receiving.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In order for any type of communication to work, there has to be an equal amount of transmission and an equal amount of receiving. If we're both transmitting at the same time, nobody's receiving anything. And if we're both receiving something, nobody's transmitting anything. But
I think you're onto something with that. And I know we've always heard the saying, happy wife, happy life. But I like the other saying that says happy spouse, happy house. Because it recognizes that I'm not the only person that needs to be catered to. I'm not the only person that needs to be loved on, needs to receive information or transmit information. If I am desiring for this house to be something where we equally can be comfortable, I have to be willing to do what I need to do to take ownership of my stuff, right? And to hear you out on yours. I just can't put up this wall and say, well, this is my side, that's your side deal. Because I'm only going to get what my side offers.
Right.
But I can have the opportunity to have the whole space, right? I have the opportunity to sit down and have the hard conversations and listen across the table and say, okay, what are your wants and needs? And how do you see me handling that? Or how do you see you handling that? Right? Because I think sometimes we assume that we know how a person wants to be heard or how they want to be viewed or seen or helped, but it's oftentimes better to ask, right?
Yeah. Right.
What does help look like for you in this moment, right? Because I may say, oh, I'm tired, I'm worn out. Okay, well, I'm going to clean the house, I'm going to wash the dishes. but that still doesn't make me feel less tired. Now, what might make me feel less tired is if you say, "Okay, I'm gonna just lay here with you. The house is in shambles, but if I lay here with you, if that's what feels comforting to you to lay here for 15 minutes and just hold you and hug you, and that gives you the energy to get back up, hey, it's a win-win.
It is.
That's all you need is a hug. Got you,
Well,
right?
that's good communication skills. Unique. Not everybody has that when we're using the I statements and we're affirming our partner. When we're sitting there together and we're saying to each other, something's got to change, and we're
Mm-hmm.
being honest. You brought in that Fresh Prince of Bel Air part two. That's something that a lot of people won't do is be open and honest. Like something needs to change. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel comfortable, and they don't want to get into that. Instead of you're not making me feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's I don't feel comfortable because I need something. It's not always that placing blame or getting defensive. That's
Mm-hmm.
not how you communicate. I've had to learn that with my current spouse because I know with my ex-wife, man, I was always on the defense, and I was usually always doing something wrong. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I was usually always doing something wrong, but because I grew up in a household where I was constantly in and out of trouble, I was constantly in and out of jails in my early ages. I was always on the defensive. So
Mm-hmm.
getting into a new, healthier relationship, I had to let some of that go. And I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? Yeah, I need to listen. Like RJ said, there's a sender and a receiver when it comes to communication. I need to receive it before I even say anything instead of getting so defensive. Like, why are you talking to me like that? What did I do? I might not have done anything. This person might just want to tell me that they're not well right now or
Mm-hmm.
they're having some
Mm-hmm.
issues right now. But I'm so defensive, I can't hear it.
Yep.
That's been a big problem for me. So I always let people know sometimes it's not always you. It could be something they're going through. So you got to hear them out
Mm-hmm.
before you jump to
I
conclusion.
mean, what you just described is what we talked about in the mental health episode about emotional intelligence, being able
Yeah.
to explain why
Right.
you feel the way that you feel. We, because again, most of us are like myself, very lazy. I'll tell you I'm mad and then leave it at that.
Right.
Right.
So then I'm expecting you to pick up what I'm putting down. But the thing about it is this right here, when you assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So
Perfect.
you never want to assume anything in regards to your relationship. Because again, assuming will have you either by yourself, sleeping on the couch, or put out the house altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that when you recognize something's not okay, don't just assume that it's because of
It's the
this.
other
No, sit down,
person.
have a conversation, and ask them to explain to you why they're upset or what they need from you.
Yeah,
Because
but that takes a
again,
level of maturity that a lot of people don't have.
that's
True.
true.
Very true.
Because
That's true.
I have to be mature enough to hear what you are saying about me and not take offense to every little thing. Right? I have to be able
For
to
Hmm.
sure.
say, okay, this is just because this is how this person feels does not one make it about me.
Hmm.
Right? Um I'll use an example for me and my dear friend Rajamel. Way back when, I'm a crybaby, and Rajamel used to tell me, "What are you crying for? It's not gonna solve anything." And at first, I would get so mad when he would say that. Like, he is so insensitive. I hate when he says that. And I think I even told him one time, like, "Bro, you are so rude and nasty." He was just, but as I got to know him, I understood that no, the one Rajamel is a rock. I think the military has made him that way.
Right.
But in him being a rock, he is also very sensitive and will meet the needs of those he loves. And so me crying about it without telling him wasn't him saying, "Bro, just get over it." It was like, "I'd rather you talk to me about it than sit there and cry and stew in your own feelings. Let's just talk about it, because that's actually going to make you feel better than you just
Right.
crying."
Hmm.
With that being said, he has let me cry on his phone many a times. I have cried to Rajamel, even though he tells me suck it up and stop crying. But he has let me shed tears, nasty, filthy, dirty tears, and he heard me out. And so but I had to get to a place where I didn't take it personal with him expressing himself, And he also learned to just let me express myself the way that felt comfortable
Mhm.
to me. And I
Right.
think in relationships, that's important. You can be comfortable enough to share your feelings, but be respectful and loving enough to allow the person to be who they are and say, hey, you know I don't vibe with this, but I love you enough to sit in this moment with you. We're not gonna stay here forever.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, you ain't gonna cry like every time you call me. But I'm sensitive and love you and respect you enough to allow you to be who you are. And I'm sensitive and respectful enough to know, okay, this might not be the person I need to do this with every time. Right? I might need to restructure how we do things. And as we learn each other, we learn better ways to love and communicate with one another.
Right. And that's knowing someone. Well, listen, family, I'm going to leave on that note and I'll let y'all finish.
All right, later, man. I think that I agree with what you're saying. Like, it is one of those things where you have to work at being able to express yourself in a way that the person is going to be able to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hollering and screaming at me is not going. I'm not receiving anything you're telling me. I'm paying more attention to how you're saying it than what you're saying.
Oh, this is where we are alike.
And that is where I have gotten myself in plenty of trouble in being in relationships with people. And I'm like, what are you yelling for?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you've been yelled and you cursed me out, are you done? Does that make you feel better?
Or what our favorite thing to do for people is to laugh.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Very inappropriate.
Oh my God.
But
do
this
do
is where
that.
he and I are like, we will laugh. It just
I will laugh in your face.
It's horrible. I know it's bad. Don't write in our comments. Y'all are rude and nasty. We know. But I'ma laugh when I start to feel threatened or I start to feel like, you know what? I'm very uncomfortable. I'm gonna laugh. And I might get up and walk away.
Yeah, because that is my defense mechanism. Is I laugh or I try to make a joke.
Oh,
and
definitely
to kind of like take the edge off of how severe this conversation is. Mm-hmm. Now I've gotten better about being able to be in that moment and be serious with a person. Now I'm not going to stay in that moment when we're being disrespectful to each other, because for me, I'm a savage and I'd have been done said something make you want to punch me in the eye. So in order to not get to that point to where we're now fisticuffs and we're disrespecting each other, I'll try to like take the edge off the conversation by making a joke or laughing. And sometimes that makes it worse. Most times it makes it worse. So I've worked on that. But it is one of those things where the way that the conversation, the way you like, and I read this somewhere, how you start the conversation is a pretty good indication of how the conversation is going to go. So if you start the conversation hot as fish grease on 10, the whole conversation is going to be on 10. Versus you start off at a soft 2, it may get up to a 3 or a 4, then it comes back down and stays at a 2 or a 3. Because.
But I think that's if you go in there with intentionality. You go ahead and finish yours. Finish your thought.
I think that it's just one of those things, like we have to work at learning how to be able to communicate effectively. Communication is one of the hardest things for us to do.
Yeah.
For me, when it's something serious, like, hey, I'm not about to text you, I'm not about to email you, anything more than 2 sentences, that's a conversation face to face or over the phone. Don't email me a Harry Potter novel. Don't text me a Lord of the Rings book. I'm sorry, don't do it, because I'm not going to read it. It'll be if it's bigger than the alert that comes up on the screen, I'm sorry, I ain't reading it. It's just gonna be unread. You're gonna have to call me. But that's a conversation, and the reason I say it's a conversation is because of the fact that it's a scientific fact. 2 people can read the same thing and interpret it 2 different ways. Yep. So I never want to take something out of context, and I never want you to take anything out of context. So if it's more than 2 sentences, if it's going to be more than 2 sentences, I'm going to call you, or I'm going to walk to you or drive to you to have that conversation with you, because I want to be able to make sure that we're on the same page. You understand where I'm coming from, and I understand where you're coming from, regardless of whatever the end result may be. But we're at least going to be open and honest with each other. But for a lot of us, we go into communicating with each other, not really understanding what it means to effectively communicate. You know, we tend to confuse listening and hearing. When I hear you, I'm not thinking of ways that I can disprove what you're saying. I'm not thinking of ways in which I can devalue what you're saying or take away from what you're saying. I'm not looking to interject or overtalk you or be right. When I hear you, I'm taking in what you're telling me and looking at ways in which I can apply it. Most of us, we interchangeably, and we think that hearing and listening are synonymous, and they're not.
Well, I think that when you hear, if your ears work, then you can hear. Listening requires an action response, right? This is something that we teach our clients. Like, you can hear something as long as your ears work. You biologically have the ability to hear it, but it's the response that in turn makes that listening, right? So when I hear music, I can respond by nodding my head or dancing or singing along, right? Or crying, right? When I'm listening to something or when I hear something and then my brain interprets the message and my body responds to it. That's what listening is. A lot of times people, they are hearing things, right? They hear what the person is saying. They hear they see the nonverbal cues, but they're not listening in order to make a conscious decision of how to respond to that, right? They are often hearing and just instinctively reacting to things because when I hear this, I do that. Like Pavlov's dogs. When a bell rings, the food is coming. And so the food could be there. I'm not going to eat it because I didn't hear the bell ring. And so often we respond reactively or instinctively without saying, or we react to things without saying, I am consciously going to choose to sit in this moment, think about what was said to me, think about what I heard, process it, right? Listen to it with the intent of, how am I going to use this information? I'm either going to use it in order to correct my behavior or use it to gain more insight on someone else's behavior, right? If I hear a loud noise in my house, my first thing is not going to be to just sit here. I'm going to listen for, okay, is there a crying that comes attached with it? Are my dogs barking? I'm going to process, was there glass? And then I'm going to get up and look around my house to see what was there, right? I'm not going to just turn and say, well, not my problem. But oftentimes in our relationships, we do that. We hear loud noises or we hear things that raise red flags or the yellow flags. And we say, well, that's that person's problem. Without listening to it and interpreting, there's something that requires more work here. There's something that requires a deeper level of investigation. Let me peel back the layer and see what's under there without it being my fault. It wasn't my fault. It may not have been my fault that there's a loud noise. It may not have been my fault, right? That this person is feeling that way, or it may or may not be my fault that they see something this way, but it is my responsibility if I'm desiring to be in this relationship to say, okay, how can I understand you? Am I hearing this correctly? Am I seeing this correctly? When you said this, am I understanding you to mean this? When you exhibited this behavior, is it fair to interpret that you meant this by that? Because this is what I'm seeing. And is that what you wanted me to get from that?
Yeah.
Am I understanding you correctly? But that takes maturity, growth, and a genuine desire to be in healthy spaces with people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that for a lot of us, and I've gotten better about asking about that. What are your expectations?
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting us to just be, you're cute, I'm cute, and then we're just kind of laying up together? Mm-hmm. Or are you looking to see this grow into something fruitful, beneficial for the both of us? Are you looking for something serious? You're looking for something long-term? You looking for something, a wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Like it's like what are we doing? And the reason I ask that is because, again, by sitting down and outlining what the expectations are, what we're both looking for, that lets me know if I'm wasting their time or they're wasting my time. And that's where purposefully dating comes in, because when you're dating somebody, you find that out. Heck, even when you're dating somebody, you can ask those questions. What are you looking for? What do you know? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 15 years? Do you want kids? If you do want kids, how many? If you don't want kids, why don't you want kids? You know, these are things, you know, it allows you to figure out, is this person in line with who I see myself being or becoming or actually am already? And if they are, you know, it allows you to develop a closeness, because now you've kind of started laying the framework for the house. You know, because when, you know, the end state goal for most relationships, you know, especially, you know, personal relationships, romantic relationships, is marriage. You know, in order to, if you think of, you know, the end state goal of the marriage, you know, you think of it like a house. You have the floor plan, then you have the framework, then you have the plumbing and all the different pieces that eventually lay one building block leads into another building block, and then bam, you've got a fully ready house for someone to move in. In order for that to happen, there has to be work that has to be put in. There has to be effort that has to be put in. You can't go into a relationship where you can, but it won't be a fruitful or long-lasting relationship. It'll be one where all the life is sucked out of you, or it's just going to be a dead end. But any relationship worth having is one in which you put forth the effort, regardless of what that effort may be, regardless if you feel like it, regardless if you want to, regardless if you feel up to it. But if the relationship is worth having and it's worth, you know, holding on to and being something that is long lasting and fruitful in your life, there's going to be effort that has to be put in. There's going to be things that you're going to have to do because it makes your partner feel special. And that's what it should boil down to. Making your partner feel valued, making them feel seen, making them feel heard, making them feel like they are the most important person in the world. Small incremental things, because some people, they need grand gestures. I've dated people like that, where if it wasn't super big and super flashy and super in front of everybody, you know, I ain't do shit. You know, but then there have been other relationships where I've been in where something small, you know, something as simple as a text in the morning, good morning, you know, ask them how their day was, making sure they ate, walking them to their car, just small things. You know, you never know where that's going to get you.
I think a lot of times, even with the grand gesture lovers, I just want to caution, if that person is not willing to give the grand gesture to you, that's an interesting dynamic that needs to be discussed.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
You want me to give you these grand gestures, these heroic behaviors and swoop in, save the day moments. Chivalrous moments, right? These
stuff you've seen in movies and on television.
Because even I think some guys are like that, right? That they want their girl to just like do these huge things, and I just want you to be this big version of yourself. But they don't show up the same way for them. I think that's something that needs to be discussed, right? Because if that's how your partner wants to be loved, but they are willing to do that, like they pull out all of the stops for you, right? And so, but I think that it just depends on getting it has to be that balance. It has to be that push pull, that give take, where I've heard people say, oh, marriage is 50-50, but the older I get, I've heard other people say, no, marriage is 100-100.
Oh, it is.
A long-term relationship is 100-100.
Yeah.
You give 100%
every single day.
Every person in that relationship, then you both pour in 100 and 100 in order to get 100.
Yeah.
Okay? Because your efforts, my 100 might not equal up to 100 every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm giving the very best of me every day with the intent of this is the best I can offer
right now.
And my spouse gives the best that they can offer right now, and together we make something beautiful because we
Mm-hmm.
understand, okay, this is literally their best. They're not shortchanging me or half-assing because they're tired today,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are giving me, in my tiredness, in my fatigue, in my anxiety, in my depressive state, I am giving you 100% effort.
Yep.
And I think that's something that can just, it can be felt. You know when somebody's giving you 100%
And
effort.
you know when someone's BSing you too.
Yep, every time, every
Mm-hmm.
time. And so having, because we talk about like men giving to women, but I want to say it here. It's women giving to men, right? A woman pouring into their man. I had one of my brothers was dating a young lady, and I just always felt like he was pouring into her so much, and she like he was like booking trips for her birthday, buying her things, always being present for her. But I said, well, it's your birthday. What do you? What is she gonna do for your birthday? Oh, I mean, I don't need anything. That's like, it's not about what you need. I know you. You like shoes. Did she offer to buy you a pair of shoes? Did she offer to watch a football game with you? Did she offer to like take you to get a manicure? Because my brother is really into like his appearance and stuff. Like, did she offer like, let me just pay for your haircut this week? No. Did she buy you, a new brush so your waves could be so your waves could look nice? None of that. He's like, she never suggested it, and
No, she just using them.
so we were trying to tell him, just like as his sisters, like, this not for you long term. This
No.
I don't think that this person is as into you as you think that they are. It seems like this person is comfortable getting as much from you as you're willing to give without the expectation that they have to show up for you in any way.
Well, for her, she was into the things that he was doing and
Mm-hmm.
not into him as the man.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's where we kind of get it confused of we like the way the person makes us feel,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or
But
we
not who
like the
they are.
things that they do for us, and not
Mm-hmm.
and not who they are. Your brother was doing the things that he was doing because that's what he saw your father do.
Mm-hmm.
He saw your father be selfless instead of selfish, and
Mm-hmm.
so he was doing the same things that he saw your father do. And I feel like that's a whole nother separate conversation in regards to, like what you were saying about reciprocation.
Mm-hmm.
That opens up a whole nother can of worms, because you will find those people who they'll give you a shirt off their back because that's
Yep.
just them, and never ask for anything in return. And just because they don't ask for anything in return doesn't mean that they don't it's it you know that it that they don't want things, that they don't need things. Well, because they are the selfless type,
Mm-hmm.
they'll put their wants and their needs on the back burner, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
have people who will just, well, I like the way this person be, they just love them some me.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
because they love them some me, then I'm gonna see what I can get. I want this, I want that, and and then it's not reciprocated. And I think that,
Yep.
again, like you were saying, it's imperative that we're kind of feeding into each other. We're pouring
Mm-hmm.
into each other. You pour into my cup, I pour into your cup.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't be, I'm pouring into your cup with the expectation that you're pouring in
That
my cup.
that's it. That's it. It should be the overflow of, the more I pour into this person's cup, I'm going to continue to flow into, the more they pour into mine, I'm going to flow and pour back into theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm looking for opportunities to make this person happy. I'm eager to find ways to please them, to
Mm-hmm.
satisfy their needs. It's
For
kind of
sure.
like a healthy one up you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they bought me shoes. Okay, bet. All right, so this is what we doing. We buying shoes. Okay, bet. So now I'm gonna get you. Now I'm gonna get you two pair of shoes just because I know you like it. It's that healthy competition where you are always gonna have what you need, not because I get any power from it, but I literally just get the satisfaction of seeing you happy. I get the satisfaction of you feeling fulfilled and loved and cared for. Um, and that's beautiful, man. I have that with several of my friends where it gets to the point where I'm like, I mean, I don't have no money. And they be like, girl, like, I'll use girls for instance, because I have girlfriends. And so some of my best friends, one of my best friends, she'll be like, so I'm trying to go on vacation. It's like, I don't have money. She's like, first of all, I didn't ask you what you had. I said, oh, okay. So, like, what are we doing? She said, the plane ticket's already bought, the room is already paid for. I will see you there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't go on the trip feeling like, well, now I owe her and I gotta do this. No, it for her, it made her feel happy to just be able to have me in that space. And so when I get to that space, I get to just spend the time loving on my bestie and having that time. And so next time when I'm able to do it, and she's like, well, girl, I'm like, girl, let's go out to eat. Well, I don't really have no money. I didn't ask you if you had money. Did I ask you if you had money? No, I said we're going out to eat. Then come on, let's go. And so it's that healthy, I want to love you harder than you love me because you deserve it. And I think when we talk about relationships, that's the type of love you want. That's that 90s R&B. I'm gonna stand in the rain for you type of love.
With
right?
the boombox.
With the boombox. Yes. Yes. Because I want you to feel I love you hard, and there's nothing that's more important than this love. There's nothing that is worth the time that I'm able to spend with you, the moments that I want to collect with you. Nothing is more valuable than that.
And I'm never going to miss an opportunity to make you feel special, to make you feel loved, to make you feel valued. Like, I'm never going to miss any single opportunity. Don't matter if it's your birthday, Christmas, whatever. It's Monday, so I'm doing something for you. And that's what is the essence of, being close to your significant other. Because when you are close like that, the opportunities are going to present themselves. You're not having to wait for a special holiday. The opportunities are going to present themselves. And you guys, because you guys are so in tune with each other, again, there's going to be looks. There's going to be, a certain way that they're walking, a certain way that they're interacting with you. You can tell. Okay. Like you get those hints. And I mean, for it's easier for us. It's easier said than done. Most of our saying what we're saying has come from a lifetime of trial and error.
Yep.
And then also, being therapists, and as therapists and as social workers, we're taught to evaluate certain things, test, retest, and repeat. And it's important that we don't, and I say that because it's important that if something is not working, don't continue to square peg in a circle hole. Like, I've seen that happen way too many times where people will settle because this is all I know, or it's what's comfortable for me, or it's what I'm used to. And you will settle for a relationship that is sucking the life out of you and continue to try to fit a square peg in a circle hole, recognizing that it's not working, recognizing that this relationship is not going anywhere, recognizing that I'm not fulfilled, I'm not full. I leave this dinner and I'm still hungry. My stomach is still growling. My ribs is touching my spine and not getting anything out of this, but you're putting everything into it. And I can tell you, like, as a person, I've had relationships like that where I'm constantly was putting and then realized I wasn't getting nothing out of it. And it was just sucking the life out of me. And so it was one of those things where it was hard to snatch that Band-Aid off and just be like, I'm done with this shit. But when I finally snatched the Band-Aid off and was just like, I'm done with this, hey, I felt like a brand new person. Like things that I totally was missing, things that I wasn't even focused on anymore. Just a lot of things kind of, started to kind of, move back in the way that they were supposed to be moving. And so, I want to leave you guys with that of never settle for something that is not fulfilling. Never settle for something that is not working, and always be willing to have those conversations, put forth the effort, and continue to work on, your relationship, because the moment you stop working on it, it's going to die. It is going to fall apart. You guys are going to drift apart. Then distractions and distractors start to slide in because you're not putting forth that effort anymore. So we're going to end the conversation here. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
I'm Unique.
And if you like what you heard, we ask that you stop by the YouTube channel because we can be watched on YouTube as Try Not to Overthink It. We're continuing to grow our communities. You know, the tribe is getting a little bit bigger every single day. So we ask that you like, share, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's a small thing for you, but it's a big thing for us, and we really appreciate it. We drop content weekly. So if you happen to stop by the YouTube channel again, you know, do all those things. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you'll get notified when new episodes come out. If you want to listen to the episode instead of watch it, we can be heard on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, pretty much everywhere you can look for an audio file. We're there. So, but again, I don't know why you prefer to listen to us instead of look at these beautiful faces.
Because
we
cute.
We cute. You know, hold on, wait a second. I ain't cute. I'm gorgeous. I'm a grown man.
Oh,
The babies are cute.
Well, if you listen, if you gorgeous, then I guess I'm gorgeous, sexy, all of the above. You know, I give you handsome on most of the days that end in Y.
Okay, so we ask that you guys, you know, check us out. You know, if you like what you heard, you know, we ask that you stay, become part of the tribe, and participate in the conversations with us. But again, we're signing out, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Later.